Chapter 20. Kaoru sat next to the bathtub with his hand in the running water, adjusting the temperature so that it would be on the tepid side. At first, the water felt a bit hot to the touch, but as he grew accustomed to it, he decided it was close to body temperature. Then he got in and sank back until the water was up to his shoulders. He soaked a while. Once the last droplet had fallen from the tap, the bathroom was silent. It was unusual for him to take a bath on a weekday afternoon like this. He lay back until his head rested on the rim of the tub, closed his eyes, and pricked up his ears. He hugged his knees and curled into the fetal position. He had the feeling that his heartbeat was being picked up by the water, making wavelets in the tub. He tried to empty his heart, but it was no use. The same scene kept replaying in his mind. It was nearly a week since Ryoji had jumped to his death from the hospital stairs. Help me. Help Ryoji. Ryoji had ended his young life before Kaoru's very eyes, forsaking his mother's wishes. The sight of Ryoji jumping had made a strong impact on Kaoru. The moments just before and after, the empty look in Ryoji's eyes as he leaned backwards, Reiko's scream. The images, the sounds, the most fragmentary details were tragically etched into Kaoru's brain. They'd appeared in his dreams every night for the last week. Immediately after Ryoji had jumped, Kaoru and Reiko and the others had rushed to the window to look out. They could see the boy's body twisted unnaturally from its collision with the concrete. They could see rivulets of blood, all flowing in the same direction, shining reddish-black in the setting sun. Reiko fainted on the spot. Kaoru picked her up. He made arrangements for Ryoji's body to be taken into the emergency ward, but he already knew just by looking that it was too late. The chances of surviving a 12-story drop onto a concrete surface were virtually nil. Sometimes he dreamed about the stain Ryoji's blood left on the concrete. The stain was still there, in a corner of the hospital courtyard. The boy's life was gone, but it had turned into a shadow which lingered on the surface of the walkway. Kaoru couldn't make himself go near it. Ryoji's suicide was an impulsive act, but there was something premeditated about it, too. When he made his move, he dashed straight for the window in the emergency stairwell. He must have known the windows there were the only ones that opened from the inside. He must have had his eye on them for some time. The motive for his suicide was obvious. He'd finished the centigram and was now facing his 4th round of chemotherapy. He must have been filled with revulsion at the thought of that miserable struggle starting again. And it was a struggle against an enemy he couldn't defeat. Sooner or later, his life would end, and until then there would be only agony. He must have begun to weigh the question of which was better: to prolong his life a little and ensure more suffering for himself, or to cut his life short and spare himself the pain. Perhaps he'd taken into consideration the way his mother suffered watching him. With the MHC virus ravaging his body, Ryoji had chosen death. Kaoru could understand his feelings, could understand them painfully well. This was something that touched him, a catastrophe that could befall him in the not-too-distant future. This was an enemy Kaoru himself would have to fight. He understood Ryoji's act, but that didn't mean he wanted to end up the same way. You've got to concentrate all your intelligence on confronting this enemy that wants to destroy your body, your youth. Those were his father's words. If he wanted to escape death, he'd have to fight, and he'd have to win. And he had only one weapon, just like his father had told him: his intelligence. Kaoru sank deeper into the bathtub. Now the water was up to his earlobes. Do I have that kind of strength? The more he thought about it, the stranger it seemed. All these events connected with the MHC virus springing from somewhere close to him, closing in on his body as if he'd been assigned to save the world. You're overestimating yourself. Unable to stand the heat any longer, he got out of the tub. Saving the world actually had a nice ring to it. He wouldn't mind looking like a hero, playing at savior. But he had a personal matter he had to attend to first. Nothing world-class, something far more local in scale. This evening, for the first time in a week, he had a rendezvous planned with Reiko. He wiped himself clean of perspiration and then put on a brand new t-shirt and jeans. He hadn't seen Reiko since Ryoji's funeral. Since then, she'd refused even to meet him. Finally, she'd offered to speak with him for an hour this evening. This would be his only chance. Kaoru would have only tonight to find out why Reiko had closed her heart to him.